But in John Travolta's own words, for years, fans have debated the film's mysteries. Yet Travolta has quietly dropped clues about scenes, choices, and meanings that most people never caught. Now, after decades of silence, he's finally revealing details that change the way we see both him and the movie. Let's tell you what exactly he confessed, and why it has taken so long for the truth to surface. How Pulp Fiction reinvigorated Travolta's career. When Pulp Fiction hit theaters in 1994, it was more than just another film release. It was a cultural shockwave that changed Hollywood storytelling, introduced audiences to Quentin Tarantino's sharp dialogue and nonlinear style, and most importantly, brought John Travolta back into the spotlight. For Travolta, the film was not just another job. It was the turning point that reshaped his career and restored his status as a Hollywood star. In the 1970s, Travolta was a household name. With roles in Saturday Night Fever and Grease, he became a cultural icon, admired for his charm, good looks, and smooth dance moves. But by the late 1980s, his career had cooled. He starred in films that failed to capture audiences in the same way, and his name was no longer guaranteed to fill theaters. By the time the early 1990s arrived, Travolta was considered a fading star, someone remembered fondly for past roles rather than anticipated for new ones. That was about to change. Quentin Tarantino, the young director with a bold vision, had a different idea. As he prepared to cast Pulp Fiction, Tarantino saw something in Travolta that many in Hollywood had overlooked. He believed Travolta was perfect for Vincent Vega, the slick, philosophical hitman who would become one of the most memorable characters in the film. The studio, however, did not agree. Executives doubted that audiences would accept Travolta in such a role. They wanted fresh faces or bigger names, but Tarantino stood firm. With the strong support of executive producer Danny DeVito, he convinced the studio to take the risk. That risk paid off. Travolta's performance as Vincent Vega was magnetic. He delivered Tarantino's witty dialogue with effortless cool, blending humor and menace in a way that kept audiences hooked. Whether it was the famous scene where he explained European fast food or the iconic dance sequence with Uma Thurman, Travolta reminded the world why he had once been a star. But this time, it was not just his charm on display. It was his ability to bring depth, vulnerability, and unpredictability to a character that could have easily been forgettable in the wrong hands. Critics and audiences alike praised his performance. The Academy recognized his comeback with a nomination for Best Actor, putting his name once again among the most respected talents in Hollywood. For Travolta, who had endured years of being dismissed as yesterday's news, this recognition was more than just an award nod. It was proof that he could still lead a film and captivate audiences. In later interviews, Travolta often reflected on what Pulp Fiction meant for him. He described Tarantino's faith as a gift, one that reminded him that talent can always shine if given the right chance. He also spoke about how playing Vincent Vega gave him a renewed sense of freedom as an actor. After years of being offered similar roles, here was a chance to play a character who was funny, dangerous, and strangely human. Travolta embraced the challenge, and it changed the trajectory of his career. The success of Pulp Fiction opened new doors. After the film, Travolta appeared in a string of hits throughout the 1990s, from Get Shorty to Face/Off. He became bankable again, sought after by directors and producers who had once doubted him. More importantly, he regained the respect of critics and fans who saw that his talent was not confined to his youthful glory days. The film itself also gained a legendary status, but part of its magic was Travolta's rebirth. Without his performance, Vincent Vega would not have been the same, and the film might not have carried the same charm. His comeback became a story within the larger story of Pulp Fiction, a reminder of how one bold casting decision can change the course of a career. Hollywood is quick to label actors as finished, but sometimes all it takes is one director willing to see beyond the obvious. Tarantino did that, and Travolta embraced the opportunity. The result was not just a career revival, but one of the most iconic performances of the 1990s. If Vincent Vega marked the rebirth of Travolta's stardom, let's tell you, what hidden creative influence did he bring onto the set that few ever noticed? Travolta's creative input on Jack Rabbit Slims. When people think of Pulp Fiction, One of the first images that comes to mind is John Travolta and Uma Thurman gliding across the floor of Jack Rabbit Slims. The dance scene is one of the most iconic moments in film history, and while Quentin Tarantino wrote it into the script, what happened on set was not just the product of his imagination. Behind the camera, John Travolta played an important role in shaping how that unforgettable moment came to life. Travolta had already made his name as a dancer long before Pulp Fiction. His performances in Saturday Night Fever and Grease turned him into a cultural phenomenon. By the time Tarantino cast him as Vincent Vega, audiences knew he could dance, but Tarantino wanted something different. The Jack Rabbit Slims contest was not meant to be polished or flashy. It had to feel playful, raw, and true to the offbeat style of the film. That is where Travolta's input made all the difference. On the set, Travolta worked closely with Tarantino to create movements that would match the quirky energy of Vincent Vega. At the film's 30-year reunion, Travolta revealed that he personally suggested additional moves that were not in the original plan. The small gestures, the twist, the eye rub, the two-finger shuffle, were born from Travolta's creativity. They gave the scene its unique rhythm and made it unforgettable. Uma Thurman matched his improvisation with her own energy, and together they built a dance sequence that looked effortless but carried the weight of two performers fully committed to their characters. Travolta has explained in interviews that this was more than just another dance number for him. He described the filming of the Jack Rabbit Slims sequence as exceptional, calling it one of his favorite memories from the entire production. Part of what made it so special was the atmosphere of the set. The diner was designed like a surreal wax museum, filled with impersonators of Marilyn Monroe, James Dean, and other icons of Hollywood's golden era. For Travolta, stepping into that environment felt almost dreamlike. He later said it was strange but magical, as though he was a living star moving through a gallery of legends. That setting, paired with Tarantino's creative energy, gave him the perfect stage to reinvent himself in front of the camera. What makes this story even more fascinating is how Travolta blended improvisation into other parts of the film as well. Reports from the set note that for scenes where Vincent was high on heroin, Travolta consulted his friend Craig Hammond. Hammond suggested he imagine the sensation as coming in waves, rising and falling, which Travolta used to shape his movements and reactions. This guidance made his performance feel more authentic and gave the character a convincing sense of unpredictability. It showed that Travolta was not only following direction but also digging into his own resources to add realism. When it came to the Jack Rabbit Slims contest, however, the creativity was more joyful than intense. Travolta recalled that the cast and crew felt like a team during those days of filming, and the camaraderie added to the fun. Everyone knew they were part of something different, but no one expected the scene to become such a lasting piece of pop culture. Today, it is impossible to imagine Pulp Fiction without that dance. It is often recreated, parodied, and celebrated, and it remains one of Travolta's most beloved performances. For Travolta, the diner sequence captured the essence of what made Pulp Fiction special. It was bold, strange, funny, and perfectly timed. It also gave him a chance to bring something deeply personal to the film. The moves he suggested and the energy he gave the scene became a symbol of his rebirth as an actor. After years of struggling with roles that did not fit him, here he was again, commanding the screen and reminding audiences of his unique talent. Looking back, Travolta still speaks with affection about that moment. It was not just a scene to him. It was a highlight of his career and a memory that he continues to cherish. The Jack Rabbit Slims dance became more than just a quirky contest in a diner. It was a collaboration between a visionary director and an actor who knew how to leave his mark. That's the moment he cherishes. But there's still one film mystery everyone's obsessed with. Has Travolta ever weighed in? Let's find more about it. The briefcase conundrum. Few images from Pulp Fiction are as instantly recognizable as the glowing briefcase. Every time it is opened, a golden light spills out and characters stare in awe, whispering, "Is that what I think it is?" The audience never sees the contents. Quentin Tarantino deliberately kept it a mystery, and in doing so, created one of the most debated enigmas in modern cinema. For 3 decades, fans have speculated endlessly about what lies inside, but no answer has ever been confirmed. Tarantino himself has always insisted that the briefcase is a MacGuffin. In film language, that means an object that drives the plot forward but is not meant to be explained in detail. To him, the briefcase was not about what it contained, but about the reactions it inspired. The mystery gave the story its surreal edge and left room for audiences to project their own interpretations. When asked, Tarantino shrugged off theories and simply said the light was there to spark imagination. That explanation, of course, has never stopped fans from digging deeper. Some believe the briefcase holds diamonds, linking it to Tarantino's earlier film Reservoir Dogs. Others argue it contains Marcellus Wallace's soul, pointing to the bandage on the back of his neck as evidence that it was removed in some dark ritual. A few even suggest it hides a stash of gold or money, while others think it could be something as simple as a light bulb meant to trick the characters into reverence. None of these ideas have been confirmed, but that has only fueled the legend. So where does John Travolta fit into this puzzle? As Vincent Vega, Travolta is one of the few characters who actually opens the briefcase on screen. His calm, fascinated reaction added to the aura of mystery. Over the years, people have often asked Travolta what he thinks was inside. Like Tarantino, he has never given a straight answer. Instead, he seems to enjoy playing along with the riddle. At a Miami event in 2025, Travolta gave fans a playful reminder of the mystery. During a themed dinner, he was served a steak inspired by Pulp Fiction. When the dish arrived, waiters presented it in a glowing box, mimicking the famous briefcase. Travolta immediately recognized the reference and leaned into character. He opened the case, peered inside, and gave the same approving nod he delivered in the film 3 decades earlier. The crowd erupted in laughter and applause. With that small gesture, Travolta showed how much he embraces the enduring myth. The reenactment said a lot about his relationship to the scene. Travolta could have simply smiled and accepted the meal, but instead he brought Vincent Vega back to life for a brief moment. That nod was more than just a joke. It was a signal that he, too, understands the power of the unknown. Fans have speculated that maybe Travolta has his own idea of what the briefcase means, even if he will never say it out loud. By repeating the exact look from the film, he kept the magic alive without spoiling the secret. In interviews, Travolta has avoided giving a direct explanation, which seems deliberate. Perhaps he knows that solving the riddle would take away the fun. What has made the briefcase so powerful is precisely the absence of an answer. Every viewer is left to decide for themselves, whether it is treasure, a soul, or something symbolic. Travolta appears to respect that choice, offering only his expressions and his humor to keep the conversation alive. The briefcase mystery continues to inspire debates across forums, classrooms, and film clubs. Some see it as Tarantino's commentary on obsession. Others think it represents temptation, power, or the idea that humans often worship what they cannot fully understand. For Travolta, it has become part of his own legacy. He knows that people link him to that glowing case as much as they link him to the dance at Jack Rabbit Slim's. He didn't reveal what was inside, but his nod says a lot more than words. What do you think? That brief gesture holds a clue to what Travolta thinks is the real meaning behind Pulp Fiction. The soul of Vincent Vega. Vincent Vega is one of John Travolta's most memorable characters, a smooth-talking hitman whose charm and unpredictability made him unforgettable. Yet beneath the dark humor and sharp dialogue, fans have long searched for deeper meaning in Vincent's story. Some see him as more than just a criminal. They wonder if his journey in Pulp Fiction touches on themes of fate, soul, and the thin line between life and death. Travolta himself has never confirmed these interpretations, but his approach to building the character shows how seriously he took the role. When Tarantino cast him as Vincent Vega, Travolta wanted to capture every detail of a man addicted to heroin. To do that, he threw himself into unusual research. He sought advice from people who had lived through addiction, and he spoke with a recovered heroin user who gave him an unusual suggestion. The addict told him that to mimic the feeling of a high, he should get very drunk on tequila and then lie in a warm pool of water. The sensation, he explained, would give Travolta a sense of the numb euphoria that heroin users often describe. Travolta took that advice literally. He later admitted that he followed the steps and used the experience to shape Vincent's body language and tone. Combined with notes from other research, he crafted a performance that captured the slowness, unpredictability, and odd rhythm of a man under the influence. This commitment gave Vincent Vega a strange authenticity. When audiences watch him move, eat, or even simply sit, there is always a haze of vulnerability and danger. It was this realism that made his character so compelling, and it's part of why fans still debate Vincent's deeper meaning. One fan theory that circulates on Reddit argues that Vincent never actually dies. In the film's nonlinear structure, Vincent is shown alive in scenes that appear after his death, which has led viewers to wonder if Tarantino was suggesting a kind of divine intervention or bending of time. In this interpretation, Vincent becomes more than a gangster. He turns into a symbol of how chance and fate work in unpredictable ways. The theory suggests that the briefcase, glowing and mysterious, might represent Tarantino's own love of cinema, with Vincent caught in its timeless energy. Another widely discussed theory points to the soul of Marcellus Wallace. Fans note the 666 combination on the briefcase and the golden glow that pours from it, interpreting these details as proof that Wallace's soul is inside. If true, then Vincent's fascination with the briefcase might reveal something about his own soul, or his lack of one. The idea that these gangsters are dealing with spiritual stakes, not just money or crime, gives Pulp Fiction a weight that goes beyond its witty surface. It is possible that Travolta, like Tarantino, sees the mystery as part of the magic. By not settling on one interpretation, he allows the audience to keep imagining. Still, the way he speaks about Vincent suggests he respects the spiritual undertones. His preparation, immersing himself in the haze of addiction, observing the rhythms of a man losing himself, gave Vincent a fragile humanity. Even though he is a hitman, audiences sometimes feel pity for him, as if his soul is caught between choice and destiny. Fans have taken that vulnerability and built theories of heaven, time manipulation, and divine symbolism around him. Travolta may never confirm whether he believes in these ideas, but his silence paired with his playful actions hints at something deeper. Perhaps he knows that Vincent's story works best as an open question. Is Vincent a doomed criminal, or a soul wandering through a universe that bends time and space? Travolta seems to prefer leaving the answer in the audience's hands. Fans theorize heaven, time manipulation, and spiritual symbolism, but what does Travolta quietly signal with that knowing gesture? You would be surprised to know his thoughts. It's my DNA, and the film's impact. When John Travolta speaks about Pulp Fiction, there is no hesitation in his voice. He does not treat the film as just another project in a long career. Instead, he describes it as something inseparable from who he is. At the 30th anniversary celebration in April 2024, Travolta reflected on the role that changed everything for him, calling the movie's impact planetarily epic, and even going so far as to say, "It's my DNA." Few words could better capture how deeply the film shaped both his career and his identity. Travolta's remark shows that Pulp Fiction was not simply a comeback. It became a turning point that permanently fused his name to one of cinema's most iconic films. Before 1994, Travolta had already tasted stardom in Saturday Night Fever in Greece, but by the early 1990s, his career had slowed, and his future in Hollywood seemed uncertain. Then Quentin Tarantino offered him the role of Vincent Vega, and suddenly, everything changed. His performance brought him an Academy Award nomination and reminded the world of his charisma, timing, and unique